Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our 5:30 workshop on Wednesday, February 22nd of the Sister City Council. Wow. So first off, Sheriff's Office report, update.
Hello.
Morning, Chad. Good afternoon. I don't know what day it is.
So at Councilor Cobb's request, we updated our stat reporting to show crime cases in addition or separate from our other cases, such as information reports and whatnot. And so actually our statistician, our Joe Jensen, who's our office specialist, actually did it for the whole year going back. So the report you got, he was able to pull all those numbers out of there. So you asked and you received. So
Yes.
I hope that's enlightening. So, I mean, a lot of the times other reports are information reports that may be about a situation, but may not be actually a crime. And so we take a lot of those reports, as you can see, about at least last month, about half of them were informational reports about a situation or whatever that needed documentation, but it didn't rise to the level of being a crime. So that's what those are all about. I just have a couple other little updates. Deputies went through training here this last month and received some legal updates, use of force training. They also received some updated investigative training, and then we're rolling out a new digital evidence collection method where all of our deputies are issued iPhones, and now we can take evidence photos and things on our iPhones instead of using an old school digital camera that isn't very good quality. And so we can record interviews, do photos on the scene, and immediately gets uploaded to the cloud so that we can preserve our evidence. So that's something that they've been doing recently. So
Sounds good.
other than that, business as usual, and I don't have anything else to report.
Great. Any questions or concerns or attaboys?
No,
Always got-
I did say thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, that was actually really easy. Once
good.
we kind of started looking at it, it wasn't something that was, involved a lot of extra time. So he was able to pull that out pretty quickly.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives us a much better picture of the
Yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah.
So appreciate that.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Okay, now we have the neighbor impact presentation. Mr. Rollet. I don't know if you remember me. I used to work for the county.
I remember you,
ago.
Andrea.
Decades ago.
Yes.
You know, that been watching your career over the years. You moved from one place to another, and now you're with Neighbor Impact.
Yes, well, I apologize for your watching my career. Yeah, anybody who gets my name right has been around for a while, so, yeah. Yes, I'm here from Neighbor Impact. I'm their one of their development managers. And I don't know, we recently had a groundbreaking on January 20th for our new food warehouse, which is the first groundbreaking we've had in 30 years for our food warehouse. We're in the process of tripling the amount of space we have, and we're in the midst of creating much greater cold storage for fresh food delivery so that the food that we do deliver is nutritious. But Neighbor Impact is a lot more than just food, although we'll get back to food in a minute. But we also provide Head Start services, childcare, where we teach the childcare providers to be childcare providers, energy assistance, lending, housing, and then food. We're the regional distributor of food for the Feeding America program and the Oregon Food Bank. So I have a few statistics for you. The first one is New Jersey. That's the size of the area we serve. Crook, Deschutes, Jefferson counties, and the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs. 57, that's the number of local food pantries that we deliver food to every week, and they distribute to 60,000 people on average each month. And that comes to 4 million. That's the number of pounds of food we distribute each year. When you start to back that off into truckloads, that's about 2 truckloads a week that we process through our 3,000 square foot food warehouse that we have right now, which is woefully inadequate. But in doing so, we're meeting the needs, or hoping to meet all of the needs, of the 1 in 4 people in Deschutes County that are food insecure. And that comes with a cost. The new food warehouse is pitched at about $5 million, and we have raised $4.8 million of that so far. So we're well on our way into breaking ground and getting finished, but we do need another $200,000. And that's the essence of what I'm trying to do here. And there's two issues that I think are important to the City of Sisters. One is that because of the food that we provide, the people who have service area jobs or in low income situations have more income to spend. And that can be to fix their car, that can be to pay their rent, that can be to go to the doctor or have their children go to the doctor. And so that is much more than just nutrition and sustenance that the food provides. The other is that we are, as a regional food distributor, we are recognized by FEMA as an emergency stop for catastrophic events. And we were very much involved in serving families that were displaced in the 2020 wildfires. And so when there's a need, Neighbor Impact steps in. You know, when the state of Oregon needed an efficient agent to distribute rental assistance payments, when the state couldn't do it, Neighbor Impact stepped in and distributed $10 million of rental assistance that got into hands of both the renters and the landlords. When the city of Bend needed a shelter manager at the Rainbow Motel, Neighbor Impact took that over. When FEMA needed emergency food distribution to those displaced by the wildfires, Neighbor Impact stepped in. So for more than 35 years, Neighbor Impact has been your partner. And we've partnered with more than 400 agencies around Central Oregon. And we hope that you can find some support to help us finish our food warehouse project. So I'm asking you to step in.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Very impressive.
So do you do any direct gifting of food to do, or do you do
Yes.
it all to other groups?
No, actually, we there's we give it to all the, Giving Plate, all of those. I came to Neighbor Impact from St. Vincent de Paul. I was running their food pantry in Redmond at the time. And so we would go to Neighbor Impact, pick up food, take it back and give it away in 8 hours. And it was an amazing thing because we just loaded up the truck and did that. And we also distributed from there to Jericho Road and some other veterans groups and kitchens that were in Central or in the Redmond area. But we give to all those food pantries, and then we also have our mobile food pantry, which goes out into rural areas where there's certain areas where there are people in need and not a real convenient food outlet for them. So we go to those, and those are mostly schools. And we've been in Sisters, and we've been in Culver, and we've been in Warm Springs, and all over Central Oregon. We have a pretty significant route that we serve.
What sort of numbers do you have for staff and volunteers?
Right now, because of Head Start, we have about 250 employees at Neighbor Impact. We have a volunteer base of around 600, including our Head Start parents, including people who work in our food bank, people who help with our events to raise money, people who show up to do taxes for seniors, people who distribute blankets that we get from the Oregon Food Bank. So we work with local businesses who they have their employees want to help. And I was actually meeting with US Bank and Republic Services and Solve Energy to develop employee programs for volunteering at Neighbor Impact. So
Great. Where is your headquarters, would you say?
we have satellite offices around, primarily for childcare and Head Start, and they're usually based in schools. Our main office is in Redmond at the airport, at the site of our food warehouse.
Okay.
And then we have other administrative offices on Empire in Bend.
So it's incorporated in this new building?
Well, the old building, the new building will include the old building, but
Okay.
it'll be it'll be on the same site and just provide added availability.
In addition to, as opposed to,
It'll be
instead
in
of.
addition and
Great.
it'll allow us to unload trucks indoors and store food indoors, which has a USDA kind of wants us to do that and not have pallets outside on the parking lot.
Better for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
for sure. Any final questions or concerns?
I had a couple. Can you tell me again what the square footage of this building is?
It'll be 10,500 square feet.
And where did you get the bulk of the 4.8 million that you've already secured?
We received about 2 million from Deschutes County from ARPA funds. We've received $600,000 or $800,000, I believe, $800,000 from Jack Zika through state allocated ARPA funds. We've had major gifts from the Murdoch Trust, Roundhouse Foundation, McDonald Fund. There's several local foundations that have participated, and individuals and event proceeds. We have our Empty Bowls event. We have our foodie crawl events that we do to raise money and raise awareness, and those are very successful in both situations.
And when is this going to be completed?
June of 24. We'll be breaking ground this spring, and we expect completion by June of 24. And I can provide you all that information as well as the list of people who've contributed so far.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And okay, Gary?
High five. Gary, can you unmute yourself, please?
There, is that better?
Yes.
A couple of questions. Are we the first municipality you've approached with this ask?
No, I'm
Okay.
I'm approaching all of the municipalities. I talked to Lapine yesterday. I talked to Ben last week. I talked to Carrie a week and a half ago. I talked to Madras and Prineville as well. So we're making the same appeal to all the municipalities as well as Crook and Jefferson counties.
And in terms of frequency that you come into Sisters, how often do you set up your pantry in Sisters?
I don't have that information, but I can get it to you.
That'd be helpful to know. And also, what is the nature of your ask? How much are you asking us to step up and help provide towards the goal that you're hoping to arrive at?
I am in the range of $20,000 to $25,000.
Okay. Well, I think it would be helpful for me to see the frequency of service in the city. And also, if you're making an attempt to help us in service to some of our houseless population as well, as that's an area that we're also focused on concentrating in. I commend what you do there in Neighbor Impact. I think it's very good. I also have high regard for St. Vincent de Paul, not only for here, but for my time in the Valley. So thank you very much for your service in this arena. And I hope to have more information so that I can make an informed decision when the time comes. Signing out.
The mission of Neighbor Impact gets me up in the morning every day, and it's an amazing organization to work with. The people there are dedicated, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not retired.
Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, on the childcare, is there already a facility slated for one of the schools in Sisters?
There may be. I'm not aware of that, but I can find out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else?
I'm
Okay.
sure we're in Head Start is here as well. So
Thank you so much.
thank you for your time, and I
You
appreciate
bet.
it.
We'll get back to you. Okay, Heavenly Acres.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You get a tag team tonight.
Right.
Yeah. So for the public, I'm Scott Woodford, Community Development Director, and to my left here is Matthew Martin, the Principal Planner. And we've been working on this thing together. We don't often get to work on projects together, and it's been kind of a fun thing to do. And hopefully we're being extremely thorough for having two minds on this at one time. So I kind of focused on the rezone part, and Matt's focused more on the text amendments. So we got a little presentation for you tonight. This is a work session. Just remind you that it's, the intent is just to educate you guys on what the proposal is and allow you the opportunity to ask clarifying questions, things that would help you prepare you for a decision when this comes back to you at a public hearing, and it's now scheduled for April 12th. So the intention is not tonight to start deliberating at all, but to just make sure that you understand, and if there's any questions or information that we can gather in preparation for the meeting to make sure those questions are answered. That's the intent of this exercise. So the purpose of this rezone, the rezone of the Heavenly Acres subdivision from its existing urban area reserve to public facility and multifamily. The purpose primarily was to clean up the zoning out there. It's kind of unusual to have urban area reserve zoning inside your city, but I think it was only meant to be a holding zone, and that's what the purpose of the zone district actually says in the code, that it's just a holding zone, and it was just meant to be there and retained in large acreage until city utilities and city transportation public streets were available. I didn't want to see it get carved up into small lots before the availability of utilities. So that's been something, as far as I've only been around for about a little over 2.5 years, but I understand that this discussion's been going on in the city for a while. It's been a goal to get that cleaned up and get it to a different zone. And for various reasons, the property owners haven't come forth with it. There's a cost to it. There's a lot of coordination. This is an opportunity for the city to do what we call a legislative rezone, where the city is initiating the rezone. There's been quite a bit of contact with the property owners well before it's gotten to this stage, to let them know, what the city was doing and why, and to what some of the zone districts that they could possibly rezone to. And we offered them basically the public facility zone district, which was kind of the zone district that was most like the existing zoning, but more appropriate, as well as multifamily residential for some of the parcels that were potentially interested in doing housing. And so most of the property owners selected, and we'll go into this in detail, public facility, but several did propose multifamily. And so it also kind of dovetails with, the city's council's goals for building more affordable housing in the community. And through our efforts as a staff, we've been able to leverage some of our affordable housing grant funds and funds that are available through the county from the federal government, the ARPA funds, to help leverage an affordable housing project, and finding an affordable housing developer, and then finding a site to build it on. And that's a very challenging thing in Sisters right now, finding appropriately zoned property and size property and a willing seller. So we had to get a little creative, and that led to an RFP that the city did to see if there was interested property owners to take advantage of, or to partner with an affordable housing developer to take advantage of some of our funds. And one of those property owners happens to be in the Heavenly Acres subdivision. And the existing urban area reserve does not, of course, accommodate residential. So, to facilitate that project, a rezoning to multifamily residential was necessary. So, so what exactly is before you, will be before you in terms of official land use requests? There'll be a comprehensive plan map amendment, a zoning map amendment, and then text amendments that are necessary to accommodate, to make sure that those existing uses are still going to be legal conforming uses when they go to that new zone district. We had to make some tweaks to the code that Matt will go into detail about to make sure that we didn't want to create non-conforming uses out there with the rezone and have it be an issue with the property owners. So go ahead, Carrie. I'm going to pass it off to Matt here. He's going to kind of give you the lay of the land and what the existing uses are out in the area.
Thank you, Scott. Again, for the record, Matthew Martin, City Sisters Community Development Department. Thanks for having me here tonight. Well, now we've got a general overview. I'd like to get you more acquainted with the subject properties. And I don't normally orient myself to the screen, but I think in this instance, I think it'd be valuable to kind of speak to it and point to it with the pointer as necessary. So what we're talking about is the Heavenly Acres subdivision. It's comprised of 7 lots and approximately 27 acres in total. You incorporate the rights of way that are located within the subject area. It's generally approximately 30 acres. Located in the south or southwest portion of the community, bound by McKinney Butte Road to the north, Highway 242 or McKenzie Highway to the south, and then Brooks Camp Road to the east, with a portion of it. Desert Rose Loop and the Village Meadow subdivision are located also to the east of the subject area. So again, there's 7 lots within the project area, kind of give you an idea of what the existing development is in the area. And for Councilor Ross and those that may be attending remotely, I'm going to speak to the lot numbers that are listed, but also point with the pointer. So first, lot number 1, owned by Sisters Community Church. Now this isn't the specific church facility, but located on the property is a couple of accessory structures, one of which was previously used as a school, but currently these structures are utilized for community outreach and other programs associated with the church use. For reference, Sisters Community Church is located to the south of lot number 1 and currently zoned public facilities. Also located on that property are some recreational fields, baseball fields, softball fields that are utilized by the community currently. There to the east, lot number 2 is owned by the Church of Jesus Christ and of the Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, currently developed with that church facility. Heading east, lot number 2 is the Well House Church, developed with their existing church facility and other community programs. To the south, lot number 4, owned by the Well House Church, currently vacant. And spoiler alert, that's one of the subject properties that's subject to the multifamily residential zone change. To the south of there, lot number 5, owned by Assembly of God Church, is developed with a church facility, but my understanding is that the church is not currently meeting at that facility, but instead Well House Church is leasing that building for some of their other community programs, in particular a community food bank or pantry. I don't know the full scope of those operations, but I know that it's in conjunction with the Well House operations. To the south, number 6, that's the Episcopal Church, again, developed with a church facility. And lastly, the Catholic Church, St. Edward's, on lot number 7. I do want to note before we get too far along, is that this little square located within the area of the right-of-way of McKinney Butte Road is the subject of this zone change as well. Nothing prominent because that is public right-of-way associated with streets, but a bit of an opportunity to clean up to align our zone map with the comprehensive plan map. So next slide. And a little bit of background on the subject properties and the process to date. I just want to note that the Heavenly Acres subdivision was originally platted in 1981, and then in 1999 was annexed within the City of Sisters city limits, along with properties, several other properties in the community, but most notably those public facility properties to the west of the subject area. And we previously brought this item to the Planning Commission earlier this month and held a public hearing, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the proposed amendments, subject to a change in the zone change aspect of the proposal, which we'll talk in more detail later.
Okay, back to me here.
Back to you, Scott.
So again, the two zone districts are proposed multifamily residential district and public facility and institutional district. You'll notice that that's a change from the existing public facility. As part of this, these text amendments, we are proposing to rename the public facility zone district to more accurately represent the whole breadth of uses potential out in the area or in the district. And again, the development code amendments that help facilitate this. So just digging a little deeper into the where specifically those zones are proposed to go. You can see outlined here in yellow the two parcels that had originally proposed to be rezoned to multifamily residential. Again, that's one is the vacant parcel that the proposed affordable housing development is looking to go on, and then the second one, as Matt indicated, is the food pantry that's being leased by Wellhouse. So go ahead and two lots, total five. Sorry, Carrie, 5.5 acres total. And then that little area of right-of-way, as Matt indicated, proposed to go, at least this was the proposal that went to Planning Commission, proposed to go to multifamily residential. So what did the Planning Commission actually approve? They approved the multifamily residential zoning on just the vacant Wellhouse parcel, but not the number 5 parcel that's shown up on the map. They did not support that as the property owner didn't indicate a desire to actually do any housing. There was some concern from some of the property owner, the neighboring property owners, that they thought that the property was already developed out, that it would not be able to facilitate housing or much housing. So the Planning Commission recommendation was just for Lot 1, the 2.9 acre lot, to be multifamily.
I'm sorry, don't you mean
Yeah.
lot 5?
So Lot 5, as it's actually number 5 up there. It's not necessarily Lot 5, but number 5 is the one that they did not support.
Oh.
Lot 4, parcel number 4 up there is the parcel that Planning Commission did support going to multifamily.
Okay.
That's the vacant parcel. Okay.
Did you get the clarification you were?
I thought we were talking, based on that image, we were talking the one with the little cutout, which on your map is Lot 5 or number 5. Not sure why we're talking about the very top one now.
So just for clarification, the lot number 4 on the image is that which the Planning Commission recommended for rezone to multifamily residential.
I have your map from your documentation, and it has it as number 5. Sorry about that.
No, that's our fault. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's not a problem.
It's not your fault. It's ours.
Okay.
That would explain some of your confusion there from my answer, probably. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on to the next slide. So the area up on the screen shaded in purple is the area that is proposed to be rezoned to PFI, is what we're calling it. And that's 5 lots, a total of 21.72 acres. And again, that was in coordination with the property owners. And all the feedback we've received from them is that the property owners support that zoning, but potentially have some public testimony at the hearing on the 12th of April. And
Scott, before you move on, the previous slide, please.
sure.
Okay, so is this one again an incorrect slide, 4 and 5? 5 is going to be proposed for what type of a rezone? Will that be PFI?
Yes, on this, you're talking about on the screen?
Right now on this map shows 4 and 5 as not being in purple. 4, I understand, will be MFR. What will 5 be?
Yeah, good question. The next slide is intended to kind of represent that. The Planning Commission recommendation was that that parcel be zoned PFI.
Thank you.
So go ahead. Okay, so this is where we're going to transition into explanation of what the accompanying development code text amendments that we're proposing are.
So the package of development code amendments are one part code cleanup or housekeeping to reflect the changes from public facility to the new public facility and institutional label. So you'll see that repeated throughout the report of the amendments and to reflect those kind of general changes. And then we have some changes that to allowed uses to reflect the existing uses within the subdivision as well as the intended uses that were expressed when we consulted the subject property owners. So this is just a quick overview of the summary of the changes with the exhibits that were included in your packet speaking to the specific text amendments. So the first being amending the definition of community center. Community center is an allowed use in the zone and a standalone use, but currently limited to public ownership of community centers. One of the property owners and perhaps others expressed interest in establishing community center on the properties. So this is an effort to broaden that opportunity and include both public and private. So the amendment is to strike the public ownership language from the definition to then encompass the varying ownership types. Next slide, please. So then within the public facility district is where, of course, where much of the work is taking place. Amending the title of the zone in particular, to going from public facility to the public facility and institutional. Also wanted to amend the purpose statement to more accurately identify the district new name, as well as the inclusion of institutional uses and private ownership of those properties. Then into the use categories, and I think this is where the most prominent changes are taking place, is the inclusion of churches and places of worship as an allowed use, in particular a conditional use in the public facility district. The staff chose the conditional use over a permitted use to be consistent with how churches and places of worship are regulated throughout the community, meaning that in all other zones where churches are allowed, they are allowed as a conditional use. Also changing allowed use, currently labeled community building. I want to acknowledge that, that the intent of that use is to be a community center. In particular, in my audit of the code, community buildings are only referenced in the code in association with manufactured home parks and cluster developments as an amenity within those developments, those particular uses. It's clear the intent in this public facility district that a community center is what the intended use of that label, that standalone use. So this is an effort to clarify and more accurately label that particular use, which is defined as term and use in the development code. So some clarification there. And then lastly, amending the allowed use of public play fields, sports complex, and similar recreational facilities to allow both public and private ownership of those facilities. Currently, it's just limited to public ownership of facilities. So want to acknowledge the existing recreational facilities that are under private ownership currently within the subject area, and allow for such facilities to be owned privately on other properties within the public facility district. I think there's an opportunity to acknowledge that, while we're focused on this particular area and the rezone to public facility and institutional, that these changes do apply to all properties that are located, or zoned public facility and now public facility and institutional. So I think that's a lens to keep in mind moving forward.
Just a clarification.
Please.
So is PFI going to be an additional zoning type, or are we changing PF to PFI? And everything in the community will now, that is currently zone PF, will now be PFI?
The latter, yes.
Okay.
So we're renaming the zone. So
Okay.
it's not a new zone, but renaming that existing zone.
Okay. And will there have to be, will there be further zoning changes or amendments we have to pass to kind of
Label.
relabel the existing PF zones?
Next slide.
Okay.
So we have
Mine.
so there was a need to make changes throughout the code where it's references specifically the public facility or PF acronym used throughout the development code. So this is an action and an effort to clean up the code to correct those references to the current but perhaps soon to be old zone label.
Thank you.
So I have a question then. So in the other current PF areas, so no other location of PF is going to require any owners to change anything. It's all encompassing, as you said before, but no owner's going to have to change anything, correct?
Correct. These amendments are not requiring change, but certainly if it's accommodating new uses, in particular adding church to the zone and then clarifying the definitions, but it's not triggering or requiring additional action by current public facility property owners.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Through this process of rezoning properties and redesignating uses to a conditional use, there's a need to address non-conforming uses in our code, and this was an opportunity to do that. In particular, in our existing non-conforming use and structures chapter, adding some language that acknowledges if a property was lawfully established at a time prior to a use being added to a zone or requiring it as a conditional use. If that was lawfully established, it can continue to operate without approval of a conditional use. So it's really just clarifying that if you were lawfully established at a particular time when that use was allowed, you can continue without interruption or any issue. Any issue becomes present if you're wanting to alter that use. Our code does not allow alteration or expansion of non-conforming uses. So you're limited to what that operation is today. So this is just to acknowledge that if you're rezoning or adding a use as a conditional use in a zone, and what the impetus of this was the inclusion of churches as a conditional use. So this is just a point of clarification. The second is the addition of a new chapter to our code, new chapter 5.3, subsequently allowed uses. This is where you may add an allowed use within a zone, or a property is rezoned to a zone that allows a particular use. So it's as if a non-conforming use was lawfully established without benefit of it being allowed or land use approval. But then the new zone or the use category is allowed or added, that then it's in conformance. It's acknowledging that those uses can continue to operate and provides an avenue to expand those uses subject to the current standards in the code. Similarly, the second aspect of it is acknowledging where a use category is added as a conditional use, or a rezone is applied to a property where that use is allowed as a conditional use with that zone change. Again, acknowledging that it may have been lawfully established as a non-conforming use, but now it's allowed. In this particular case, you're not locked in. You're allowed to expand those conditional uses subject to approval of a conditional use permit and the current standards that are in the development code today. So this provides an avenue for expansion or alteration of those previously non-conforming uses, but now allowed subject to today's standards. And I will pause there for any questions or additional comments from Scott.
Well, maybe that's a good spot to, I have one more thing that I wanted to bring up that I didn't bring up in my presentation. But if you want to ask some questions on what Matt just said while it's still fresh, go ahead if you'd like, or if you want me just to conclude. Okay.
Oh, I did have a question.
You do.
You were saying, yes, you wanted a question. I see. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I don't want a question. Is housing allowed in PFI? 'Cause I know that there, for instance, the Forest Service property is owned currently public facility, and they have housing, employee housing.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious if this will be allowed, to a certain extent moving forward, or is that a conditional use or a?
So I want to acknowledge two things. First, the Forest Service property, that's federally owned,
Right.
not subject to local standards. So that's where that opportunity on the Forest Service campus to provide that employee housing currently, and housing or residential uses are not allowed in the public facility district. We did contemplate inclusion of employee housing. I know that there's generally been interest expressed by the school district in particular in exploring providing employee housing on their properties. Initially explored that, but at the point of the project moving forward today, the school district was not in a position to move forward with that concept, and there may be some limitations legally in how that housing can be administered or ensured that it's, in particular, for example, school district employees residing there. There may be some legal limitations in having that requirement. So for the benefit of this project and the zone change in particular to move forward, we removed that from the proposal. And so to answer your question, residential uses are not allowed and not proposed here.
So just to add to that, we since the school district is going through that process with the U of O to determine feasibility of housing on the property, we thought we'd kind of see how that process plays out first, and we may revisit it in the future. So it with some issues that we'd have to work through. We're not necessarily comfortable with just having straight residential allowed on public facility, but it'd be great if we could make it more tied to employee housing. But as Matt said, there were some legal issues identified by the city attorney. Tying housing to employment is tricky. So any other questions on text amendments before I just kind of conclude with a little other issue?
So then a church could not build any housing for a you know, a pastor or somebody like that either? Is that,
You know, a parsonage, you know, that kind of thing, you know, it'd be better if it was specifically, you know, a use allowed in that district. You know, it could be potentially covered under what we call accessory uses, you know, where the church is the primary use and it's a small component, kind of accessory to the primary use. Potentially, we could make it work there. So I just wanted to conclude with, you know, there's some criteria in the development code that we have to follow to review rezonings and text amendments, and including statewide planning goals and the comprehensive plan goals. But it also we're required with rezone to be in compliance with the transportation planning rule, which is a requirement that basically we have to go through to make sure that there's not going to be a significant effect on our transportation system by, you know, like an upzone, especially associated with going from like UAR to residential. And then there's criteria that we make sure that our utilities and our street system can either existing can handle it, or with changes can handle the expected increases in demand for those types of things. So we had the city engineer do an analysis, as well as the city's transportation engineer for the transportation. Essentially what we're looking at is all of our water, wastewater master plan, our transportation plan are based on zoning and what those things can create, what impacts those can create. When you change that changes some of the assumptions of those plans. So we need to take a look at to make sure that you know, that there aren't that we can accommodate that, and if we can, if there are mitigation fees required, and that's based on precedents for previous rezonings that we've done, where we've charged mitigation fees for the increased impacts that those have created, and that's an issue here on this parcel. It's you know, it's increased trips that are going to have an impact on the roundabout. Basically, the transportation analysis said that the existing street system can handle it, but we have an issue with the Barclay roundabout, which is an issue with or without this rezone. It's an issue that we are dealing with, and some of the mitigation is the alternate route, you know, that's being built, the roundabout on the other side at Locust, and some of the signage to divert traffic. So there's a trip fee. There's a fee a proportionate fee that was derived by the number of trips that this was going to impact based on an average density zoning analysis. And so there's a per trip mitigation fee that's going to be required at time of building permit for if and when people build on multifamily on these zones. You know, there's always an if. So that fee only comes into effect if they actually build. And then there's also the same one for water. There's additional water rights that are necessary to accommodate some of the increased growth. So there's a proportionate share that's going to be charged through this approval. And then impacts to the west side pump station, there's a proportionate impact there. And so you'll see these in the conditions of approval when they come in your staff packet. They'll explain that in a lot more detail and what those fees are. Typically, they're requirements of the applicant, but the city's the applicant, so it's really those conditions are going to be borne by a future builder on the property. And if you have any, oh yeah.
So in,
Councilor Cobb.
so in this specific, I always have trouble with that word. In this specific case for that lot numbered number 4 that we're looking at for, you know, developing for affordable housing,
Mhm.
that particular developer is going to be paying those fees you were just talking about, those, correct?
Correct. Any other questions on that? And did you have anything more we'll leave to some time for you guys to ask some questions the last 10 minutes, but you want to do the next steps, kind of finish this up?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the schedule. So this is scheduled to come back to City Council for public hearing April 12th. Important to acknowledge for the greater good that this was originally scheduled for March 8th, but rescheduled to the April 12th meeting. That's important because in this week's the Nugget newspaper. Our legal notice was published for that March 8th meeting. So we will renotice in the published notice. So I just want to make that point of clarification here tonight for the record.
So will both the original proposal come to us or the modified approval from the Planning Commission?
It's a good question. So we'll be sending forward the Planning Commission's recommended motion. If for some reason you wanted to modify that, we could modify if you wanted to like put it back or whatever, or what, just a scenario there, we'd be prepared with conditions to be able to address that. So, I mean, at this point, it's the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it's the council's right to deal with it as they see fit. Change, modify, approve as is.
Councilor Ross wants a high five, I think.
I'm a little concerned about the date change. The 8th worked into my schedule. As you know, I'm not going to be available in the month of April, especially on that date. And I'm comfortable with something like this having less than the full city council review and discuss it. I will not be available by Zoom. I will not be available by phone. So I will not be available. And so I think I need to express that concern at this point in time. The delay may be reasonable and it may be because of the amount of work that has to be done. But moving it into April means that I cannot attend. And I think this is too important to have 4 votes rather than 5.
Do you have what was the reason why it was moved from March to April?
So we were taking a look at the, because of there's kind of a cascading effect of other projects. The Parks Master Plan had to be bumped from the 22nd tonight to 3/8. And then we have the Affordable Housing Grant proposed to go for approval that night. And what else do we have, Kira?
The joint meeting with the Board of County Commissioners is that night as well.
Okay, so we kind of talked it over internally and thought that was a big night, and that it would be this, not with respect to Councilor Ross's schedule. We were kind of looking at your agenda that night and trying not to overload you with big projects, and so that was the reason.
Is there a possibility that Gary could have one of us share his information that even though he's not here? Is that possible?
That won't work for me because of the timing of the packet. Is there a reason we can't do this on the 22nd of March?
Canceled the 22nd, the meeting.
Thank you very much. That's correct. I have real concern, and I think that I would need the material to review and be able to put my questions to somebody. I'm just very uncomfortable, and I appreciate the question. I think it was Councilor Cobb who asked. Quite kind of hard to tell from the distance here, but I think that we owe the citizens a full council when we have these discussions.
So could we possibly bring back the 22nd?
There's
Of
no meeting on
March?
the 22nd.
I know. I'm just saying.
It's the middle of spring break and a lot of staff and.
Oh, you're
and
not
people
here.
will be gone.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is there,
Well, what else is possible? Can we do it a different week? Gary, when do you go?
well, why don't we have the staff look at the possibility of making any adjustment if there is something else that could bump to allow room for that, or and just look at it, and we'll have to proceed as planned unless there is the ability to rearrange things. And I know you've already attempted to shuffle as much as you can shuffle. But given his concern, if there's any way to, if it just means a longer meeting for counselors, I don't know that we would probably be willing to do that so that Gary could be here. If it's more than that, we'll understand.
I think the question to the planning staff is that's 2 ordinances that actually need to be ready and together by next Tuesday, because I have to get them out to council a week in advance. So that's the pressure on planning staff, is you've got 2 ordinances rolling out next week because of the
Right.
charter recommendations. So that's up to
Yeah,
planning staff.
let's strategize this
Yeah.
internally and we can kind of connect with you all.
See if
That's
you can
okay.
massage things a little bit. If not, I understand, but I understand Gary as well. He hates to miss this
You
kind
know,
of a. public
possible too, and I don't, I hate to delay things, but we could, there's no like artificial deadline on this. I'm, something we need to look into to see if it affects the affordable housing developer and their,
Can we push forward as opposed to push back?
We'll take a look at this as staff
Yeah.
and circle up with you.
And I'm comfortable meeting and discussing this in our one-on-one as we get, into next week or the week after. I really am uncomfortable putting too many details about my plans out in the ether for anyone in the world to see. So, and I appreciate the thoughts. I just need to tell you that if you meet with 4, that's fine. I just think that this may be non-controversial, in which case it's a non-issue. If there is some controversy, I think the more of us that are there, the better. So thank you for your listening, and I appreciate, and I would change my plans, but these have been made for a year and a half. So I can't change those.
Got it. Yeah, we've all ended up missing some important things occasionally, but life intervenes. Yes.
I did have one other question. The second property owner, the Assemblies of God, how do they feel, or how does that property owner feel about being in MFR versus PFI? Did they request to be MFR?
so when we initially started this conversation, I called the property owners to let them know and just get their thoughts. They don't have any plans to build residential, but they did have a concern about the public nature of the word public in the district relative to privately held institutions. So that was the primary reason why they wanted to go to MFR versus public facility. I let them know that we, during the course of this process, that we were planning to expand the name to include institutional, and I never heard back from them regarding that. Whether they are following the process now or not, I'm not sure. When we do go to council and we get it scheduled, we are required to notify the property owners again. So be another cue for them to get involved. If they want to lobby for this or that, then that's their time to do that.
Okay, are we ready to wrap up? Okay, we will close. Go ahead.
Other business? We have a moment.
No, we don't have time.
Okay.
We can bring it up
Never mind.
at the next one.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes, so why don't we come back at 25 till. Call to order the Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023 City Council meeting of Sisters, and welcome everyone. Couple of pieces of information. If you would all turn your cell phone off to vibrate, we would appreciate it. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge the flag of the United States and choose a republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Roll call, Carrie?
Mayor Preden? Council President Cobb? Or
Here.
sorry, Council President Plum?
Oh, you got promoted.
Here.
Councilor Letts?
Here.
Councilor Ross?
Here.
Counselor Cobb.
Here.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we have visitor communication, and for those of you who have come before us, before, you know that you have about approximately 3 minutes, and please give your name and address when you come up to speak, and speak directly into the microphone so that the recording will be picked up well, and even those that are on Zoom will be able to hear you.
Dana McNeese. Deanna, I know better.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me come. My name is Dana McNeese. I live at 17530 Mountain View Road, Sisters, Oregon. And I'm here to talk about the space age expansion, and so I've written it out. Sisters is a small town of small businesses. This is part of its charm and unique experience that draws people to the area. I come to speak tonight with a biased view of city planning and growth because I grew up in McMinnville, where they started planning for the future in the 1960s. At that time, they chose to allow the state to put in a bypass diverting traffic going to the coast out of the downtown area. Other small towns close chose to keep the tourist traffic through the heart of their towns because they thought they would lose business. Well, they did lose business because it became so congested and undesirable that nobody wanted to visit. That finally got remedied 60 years later in the last 5 years. McMinnville continued to preserve its downtown area, keep it friendly and walkable, and support local businesses. In 2014, it was voted the second best main street in America. In 2016, it was voted in the top 5 downtown regions in the nation by the American Planning Association. I want that to be Sisters. We are already a destination spot with a thriving tourist industry and blossoming growth. Now is the time to take a deep breath, plan ahead, and protect our small town and its small local businesses. We have wonderful little restaurants that we need to support by not bringing in larger chain food service industry that could possibly compete with our special and distinctive eateries or our famous beverage locations like Sister's Saloon. You can't get any more local than that. Hardtails, The Barn, and Three Creeks Brewery. Space Age will sell donuts and the like in their convenience store. Do we want people to know that, or rather have the special treat of going to Sister's Bakery or Angeline's? Space Age has dairy products and groceries. Do we want to divert people from going to Oliver Lemons for their groceries? Do we want to divert people from going, or Snowcap for the delicious ice cream? Let alone the experience of standing outside Snowcap in a line waiting for that ice cream delight. These are experiences that you do not get elsewhere. Let's protect them. Let's cherish them. The City of Sisters has done a marvelous job of creating a beautiful, thriving town with a distinctive persona and flair. Let's continue to support our local small businesses, not compete with them by allowing larger chain stores to crowd the market and possibly destabilize the great little city that we have now. Thank you.
Dana?
Yeah.
Can I get a copy of that, please? If anybody is reading the letter directly into the record or is showing anything, I will need a copy of it for the record. You can give me the appointments, great, or you can email it to me. Nadine Sims?
That's a tough act to follow. Nadine Sims. I live at 150 West Heising Drive in Sisters. And I've been doing, I'm new in the community, although I've lived in Central Oregon since the 90s. And I was doing some research when I heard about the possible gas station changing to a 16 pump and mega convenience store, 3,500 square feet. because I live in Clear Pine and it's near the alternate route, the Barclay Locust alternate route. So I made some inquiries, and that alternate route was actually first worked on in 2008. That's 15, almost 15 years ago. And the point of it was, there were, at that time, there were 11 possible alternatives were initially identified. So a lot of thought was put into this alternate route. They came up with it, and while Cascade would continue to operate as the city's principal roadway, its safety would be enhanced by the alternate route. The Barclay Locust alternate route would respect and preserve existing local traffic patterns while reducing congestion in the downtown core and improving pedestrian safety overall. The Barclay Locust alternate route would preserve the integrity and the pedestrian-friendly quality of the city's downtown core. So if that was the vision for the last 15 years, why would we want to put this very unsightly, enormous for the size of our town on our main street at the very entrance or exit of people coming and going from our town? It's already a busy intersection, and so I don't see how this vision to put in all of this thought, time, effort, and money to make an alternate route, wouldn't you expect the gas station to be put there and not bring traffic possibly, or create traffic problems by coming back on to our main thoroughfare when you only have to read the paper and the news to know, like Lake Tahoe just had a huge article about its unlivability now, and we don't want that to happen to Sisters. I've never been really pro-tourism because I've lived in beautiful places and they tend to get ruined, and I don't want to see that happen here. But also, tourism is a real important part of our livelihood. And what I'm trying to save for Sisters is also what will bring our best tourists, because it's a beautiful place, it's a special place, and it shouldn't become just like any other place, USA, small town with a mega gas station as our entry point or exit point. When it has other places, it would be better. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nate Jackson?
Hi, I'm Nate Jackson. I live at 17423 Mountain View Road, Sisters. I have just a brief comment that I feel in conjunction with tourism that would, rather than planning for 16 more gasoline pumps, we should be planning for 16 charging stations, and that should be a priority over adding more fossil fuel consumption. That's it.
Linda, I'm not Warnholtz, sorry.
My name is Linda Warnholtz, and I live at 269 North Wheeler Loop in the Pines.
Thank you.
I had this problem last time. Okay. You know, I've been coming here since I was a little girl. I was born and raised in Portland, and my grandparents used to drag me along during the summers to fish. And it was the most wonderful time growing up and coming over here. It's just absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's stunning. And I finally had an opportunity to move here in 2018, and I did. And it's, you know, looking at those mountains is one of the most wonderful things and soothing things you can ever run into. I mean, it's just great. And so now that I've been here and I'm seeing what's happening to this little town, I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. You know, the traffic is horrific, especially starting on Thursdays and going through till Monday. But you know, somewhere we've got to stop and think about what we're doing to the community. And it's heartbreaking. And when I see those deer, where they've bulldozed all the trees and over there looking for food, it's really sad. It makes you want to cry. But anyway, the new gas station is what I really want to talk about. And I've prepared a statement, but I'm going to have to send it to you because I made last minute changes. So Sisters, Oregon is the gateway to the Cascades. It has beautiful surroundings with those majestic mountains, ponderosa pines, wildlife, and 1880s downtown core. When you arrive in Sisters from the west, you have the Ponderosa Lodge to the left with wood-fenced corral that in the summer houses not cows or horses, but llamas. You come to the traffic circle with large rock, deer statues, and dirt. No green grass because we're high desert. It really doesn't belong here. Sisters is unique. We're a community of artists, which shows with our Sisters mural on Hood Street and the art outside the galleries and shops. The City Council in 1970 chose to adopt an ordinance maintaining the 1880s look going forward. So when you get to the heart of downtown, you realize how much so. Everyone knows and loves to visit Sisters. We don't need to advertise, it's already sold out. Trying to maintain that atmosphere while growing is tough to do, or we wouldn't be here trying to hold on to the uniqueness we have. For some reason, we're having a hard time saying no. Is it because Oregon, who says you will do this? Whatever the reason, I can assure you the owners and residents who live and shop here on a daily basis don't want it. After going door to door with 6 friends, taking different neighborhoods and asking for signatures to stop the Sunset development, we didn't find one person in favor, and I'd be willing to bet you won't find any wanting a large industrial-looking gas station and convenience store going on Pine Street and Cascade. It's too large for the area and will be an eyesore to our city's gateway. We already have 5 more stations, none of them pretty, but they're built to reflect the look of our town. Even the convenience store and the McDonald's buildings have that 1880s look. Do we need another convenience store? Especially one so large? Ray's is already there, you pass it coming in. Where are they going to find the people to work? Because they're going to have to hire more people. There's no place for those people to live. I mean, we're struggling with that now. We've got people living in the forest that actually work here. There is nothing stopping us from saying no. So we really need to do this. Oregon's history is conservation, way back to Tom McCall. Let's do it right and grow it slowly and with thought to impact on what's already existing. Thank you.
Sharon Booth?
I am Sharon Booth. I live at 69453 Lasso in Sisters. And I'm talking about our concern over the health effects of having a giant gasoline station near residences. So I brought a few copies. It's just a copy of my personal notes because I couldn't get the article is buzzfuel.com and the title of it's there. So, okay. And then there's a third one that I've yet to be So the health effects of living near a giant gas station as well. Part of my brief presentation is about living near major traffic areas, thoroughfares. There is, and my point of view is that of having worked as a physician in California for 35 years. And I'm going to reference an article from Columbia University School of Public Health that was done specifically to investigate toxic fumes living when you're exposed to those from gas emissions. Just to keep it concise, the First, they found that there were very high levels of ozone at ground level from the fumes at a fuel station, along with other hazardous compounds and vapors that come out of the vent pipes if they're not properly sealed. And they often emit up to 10 times the numbers that were originally used to determine the regulations regarding location and setbacks from schools and neighborhoods. So those old regulations are inherently extremely out of date and no longer applicable. But they give us a long list of very serious chemicals that are emitted at these gas stations that are harmful. Many of them cause cancer: carbon monoxide, benzene, and other particulates. Unburned hydrocarbons contribute to air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. The WHO has created occupational warnings for workers who work in the gas fuel economy. There are also numbers about the allowable emissions, including benzene, that exceeds the 1-year equivalent of guidelines. Only 7 yards away from the emissions, you are exposed to what's considered tolerable for an entire year if you're only 7 yards away. Even 300 feet behind the setbacks, there are emissions in the toxic range. So this particular article was on a website called Fossil Fuel: Is It Safe to Live Near a Gas Station? And again, it came from Columbia University's School of Public Health. In addition to the gas station fume exposure, there's also a very closely related concern about the known toxic effects of living near large highways, which has also been very well documented. This is an article from the EPA regarding this subject, and I did give you a copy of that. And most of my practice time was in Fresno, California, which, if you know California's anatomy, you'll know it's right smack in the middle of California. And guess what else is there? Highway 99, which comes all the way down from Oregon. And most of the diesel fueled trucks, semi-trucks bringing goods and transmitting other products. Anyway, they go right down the middle of the state on 99. And so the air population was one of the reasons we moved up here. I think I said population, I meant pollution. It's horrific there, and it's directly tied to the fact that all these semi-trucks are using diesel and coming constantly up and down the spine of California. So the point is there are well demonstrated, documented health effects of living near a large highway. So that also affects us here in Sisters with constant traffic of diesel fueled trucks. Yeah, for right now, that's a good start. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Charlie Stevens.
Good evening. My name's Charlie Stevens. I live at 1086 West Collier Glacier Drive here in Sisters. It would seem that the proposal for the expansion of the space age fueling station and convenience store has gotten the attention of a lot of Oregon local residents. 20 years ago, James Kunstler published a book called The Geography of Nowhere. And in that book, he made it rather plain that America was heading rather rapidly toward being a country where every place looked and felt like every other place. And for a lot of us, we're starting to feel like Sisters is kind of heading in that direction, pretty much full tilt here. So for many of us, The gas station proposal is one of many that raise some questions that the city we don't think has even bothered to ask, much less answered. As it approves projects like the fueling station expansion, who is the city planning to serve? The people who live here or the people who, and the commercial interests that are just passing through? How big does the city have to be before the planners start planning for the benefit of the city who live here instead of the people who are just passing through? If the city proposes, for instance, to zone in hundreds of new housing units, who does the city believe are going to live in those units? If we're not planning housing for the wealthy retired, who's going to live in those units and where are they going to work in order to pay the rent or the mortgage? Who's going to own those dwellings and why? How much wealth is being extracted from our community by people who don't live here or businesses that aren't owned locally? And what's the city doing to minimize that? If the city wants to accommodate new businesses, what kinds of new businesses does the city need? And who will those businesses serve? The people who live here or the people passing through? At what point will the next tourist-focused business simply cannibalize the revenues of the ones that are already here? There's probably an optimal location for this fueling station that might serve Sisters well in the future. Where is that optimal location, and what can the city do to see that it's located there? We suggest that the city return to its vision, put together some 20 years ago by a whole lot of citizens that I think did a pretty good job. And it would be good if the city would grade itself honestly about whether that vision is actually being manifested by the development decisions that they're making. Development, in my opinion, long ago ceased to be about providing homes for people and growing locally owned businesses. It's now much more a process for investment and making money. And a lot of that money is extracting wealth from the community and its visitors. Has the city ever considered what exactly are the root causes of this situation and what can we do as a community to address that? Thanks.
Mark Dickens?
Thank you. My name is Mark Dickens. I live at 133 East Black Crater Avenue here in Sisters, and I'm the last speaker tonight, so thank you for your patience. I'm just going to kind of touch on a few things here, kind of summarize a lot that's already been said. There is a document that I'm sure everybody's familiar with here in the city. This was a flyer that I was able to find from this group that goes back about 20 years. And this was really sort of ahead of its time. These were folks that lived here in town that had a vision for Sisters, that wanted to preserve the character, the authenticity of the town. And I think what you've heard here tonight is that there seems to be this abandonment of that commitment. I can read you something real quickly here that sort of illustrates that. This was a strategy for prosperous Sisters, as put forward in the vision document. Forest Service property development, facilitate the development of a master plan on the U.S. Forest Service property that is compatible with the community's character and identity, combining mixed-use, commercial, residential, and recreational facilities that anchor and define the community, create new jobs, and providing housing options. I have a question. Does this look like it reflects the character and the charm and the community of Sisters? This is an abomination, this gas station. This is what it would actually look like at nighttime, all lit up when people come into town for their vacation, and this is the first thing they're gonna see. This is what it would look like in the daytime. And what's interesting is when you look at the application that's been submitted, this is what they show, an architectural rendering showing the building, but what's missing? It's absent this. This is just an absolute disingenuous proposal. It's dishonest, and it absolutely does not reflect the value of Sisters. I've got a couple quick little things I want to touch on. There is an opportunity here to do something that would create a legacy for everybody up here. That property could be redeveloped, turned into a Samuel Hinman Plaza, something like that. That gas station could be relocated over to the alternate route. There's other proposals, other options that can be put forward. I hope the city will slow things down and take the time to consider these. Um, the, um, the other concern I have here in this is that you have a powerful developer, very wealthy developer that seems to come in and bully and intimidate the folks here in the city. And we've seen it time and time again with these developers where they make promises and representations that never end up achieving the goals. And I'm not sure if the city is just risk adverse or if it's getting some bad advice from its outside counsel. I'm not sure. I'm very concerned that the developers have no consideration for this vision that was created by people that go back literally decades. And last week at the Planning Commission meeting, I brought a guest here, Emil Smith. He's 89 years old. He's lived here since the 60s. And he was one of the original founding members of this vision that they had for Sisters. And I find it really shameful that Sisters has endured for over 150 years. And the town that we have here today, that we get to be the lucky occupants, residents of, and be the custodians, that we're going to throw it all away in just one short decade and abandon all the work that was done going back decades. I don't think this is the legacy that any of us want to leave for this town, is to allow something like this to come in that is just simply incompatible and does not serve the residents. This is clearly designed for tourism. We don't need it anymore. This needs to go on the outskirts of town or just be gone altogether. So I really hope the city will consider all the input and understand that when our little ragtag group shows up here tonight and the 15 of us talk, we're speaking for hundreds of residents in this town, possibly thousands. So I really hope that you understand that and we'll consider all of these things that are brought up. And we look forward to raising these questions and putting forward some constructive ideas and alternatives and engaging the public and letting the community know that their interests are really being taken to heart. So thank you very much.
Any more? Okay, thank you very much. I would entertain a motion to vote. She was just saying, this is the largest group we've had here in a long time. And, we want, I can't stay for the whole meeting. It's fourth, your commentary. So you get a sense of how the council stay. We don't have anything super juicy on the agenda, but you're welcome to stay and we'd love to have you. So moving on from there, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And Gary. Our mayor on, so we will carry on. We'll wait, people get. Okay, are you ready to go on the next item?
Yep, so what you have before you is a grant agreement with the Deschutes County. As is said in the staff report, staff attended the Board of County Commissioners meeting on January 11th, presented before them the proposal of an affordable housing project, which we would like to additionally for that project. So that you guys are of those funds. We're in that process now. Some just key items in that agreement are the deadlines, like you could say the December 31st, 2024, which is the commitment of the funds, and then December 31st, excuse me, 2026 is when they're supposed to be expended. So those are some key dates, of course, because in the event that those aren't satisfied, that money will have to be returned to the county. So staff obviously will be, closely following those and putting steps into the process in order to make sure that those come to fruition and they're not passed. And then just in terms of the financial impact, aside from all, some staff time and guidance, this will be kind of forwarded on to the grant agreement that you'll see the next meeting with Northwest Housing Alternatives. So basically the city's a subrecipient of that, right? So we're getting money from the county and forwarding that funds onto that agreement. The advantage of that is we can kind of get to some of the things that will work for us and of how that's going to look in the city and what some of the things that you'll want to see in that project versus the county running it. So that's one big advantage of that. More on the administrative end for staff, but so
Definitely not. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled that, we're moving this along, making the next step. I'm, trying to get everything out of the way that could possibly mess up because this is so for our community, and I'm thrilled. I have a motion, please.
I move to approve the grant agreement with Deschutes County for $500,000 in American Rescue Plan Act for an affordable housing project and authorize the interim city manager to agree.
I second. Aye.
Aye.
And I'm voting aye, although the audio is broken, so hopefully you can hear me.
Now, thank you, Gary. Next item, Paul.
Connect a 12-inch water main behind the Best Western Hotel with a new 12-inch line that was put in by the developer of the Three Peaks Industrial Park. It's a key connection for a water system. It'll create a full 12-inch loop all the way from well 3 out to the high school, all the way through the Hayden development. So it's something for decades. And this is the final piece that's going to be connection. So, as well as just good circulation with looping your water system to keep your water quality high. We budgeted $60,000 for it in the Water SDC fund this fiscal year 22-23, and the low bid came in at $58,240. Happy to answer any questions.
I noticed that the high bid was around 100,000 and, significant breaks in between. It's just amazing how different the bids can be on the same project.
Even line item by line item, if you took a look at that bid
Yeah,
tab,
yeah, very
traffic control was just such a weird one because there's very little traffic control back there, but contractors do strange things. They throw their money in weird line items, so can't really explain it.
Any questions?
Gary, how many questions?
He doesn't have his hand up, so we'll.
Yeah, I think we had a little technical glitch there.
Our internet was unstable for a minute. I will, if we don't hear from him, I will text him.
I can hear at this point. Paul finally appeared. He was invisible for about 5 minutes.
Do you have, did you hear his report and do you have any questions?
I heard his report, no questions. Another example of why we do competitive bidding. You can see right there in that spreadsheet the results of such.
Thank you. Motion?
Yep.
Do you want me to read it?
Oh, no, it's just the wording was off here. I move to award a public improvement contract to SLE Incorporated in the amount of $58,240 for the Best Western Waterline Extension Project and authorize the interim city manager to execute the contract and any necessary contract change orders and or amendments within a contract contingency amount of 5% of the contract.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
So moved. We'll move on to other business. We don't have the mayor with us tonight, so we will attempt to assume what he would do and what he would say for these. We have a new appointment to the Planning Commission from a vacancy. And if you remember, we just went through this a couple of months ago. And so we didn't feel that it was necessary to open it up because we had a number of people who had applied in the past and had some very good candidates. And so the mayor has intends to appoint Sarah McDougall to a 2-year term on the Planning Commission. Does anybody have any comments or concerns about how that was done or why it was done? Sarah's been to a lot of our meetings and we appreciate her interest in the county. Anything else? Okay. The mayor also brought forth as his position on Central Oregon Cities Organization, COCO, to get our impressions on a number of bills that are currently at this legislature, to see what kind of support and priority we might have for these bills. He needs it right away, so we will go ahead and look at it. I expressed concern to him that I felt uncomfortable with most saying yay, nay, or otherwise to almost all of these bills because I did not have a good understanding of why they were being proposed, what the opposition or the might be to them. It was not fleshed out enough that I felt like I was in favor of having COCO say the City of Sisters was adamant in support of this or not in this. However, I know that others maybe had more time to search them than I did. I did look at some of them and many of them didn't have that explanation in the how would you like to proceed? Feel that there are some of these that you would definitely want to say a yay or a nay, or how do you feel we should proceed? And Gary, go.
Again, hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm sorry, everything's broken up or frozen. I'm going to give it a try. I agree with you,
Yes.
Andrea. I looked it over the list and I felt that some of those needed a little more examination prior to just kind of stamping the whole list. And so I'm not inclined to do so at this time until I have more information.
I too echo that. I went on the state's bill tracker website and whizzed through 4,000 bills to try on these. They're all kind of steals. They were kind of odd picks to me, but I mean the research is very and and they literally some of them, you know, some of them had already had at least initially see what
website, and like on HB where the Coco is saying that pose it, did we? It basically, it's a, efficiency.
Exactly,
For
yeah.
example, so I just was like,
positively or negatively about these, if you don't mind. And I've told the mayor that we contribute funding to COCO, and that I believe if we are going to be asked to do this, then we need a pros and cons statement on what the bill would do, and those that support it, why they support it, and those who oppose it, why they oppose it. They could learn a good lesson from the League of Women Voters, who does that on their voters guide every time they put one out. And so he's aware of my concern. I'm glad we're all somewhat on the same page. I know he will probably be disappointed because he's going to have to tell
well, I think we
them
could,
that we're not participating.
I think we could make a recommendation that the next time, like you just said,
Right.
not only that, the first packet they gave us was a list of about, I don't know, 70 bills or something.
Yeah.
And then out of those, they picked these 16 or so and said, okay, give us the nod. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And even the ranking was difficult, like give it a 1 if you're for it and a 4 if you're not, for them to move forward on it, showing interest. But some ones I would want them to definitely be interested to stop it, and some ones I'd definitely be interested to
Right.
go
Was
for
it a 1 to
It's very
4, even if you
yeah,
oppose it?
very confusing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, we'll
Yeah.
give the mayor the bad news on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I understand at this point, especially with 4,000 bills, there's an urgency factor that not everybody's going to be walking into this with all the knowledge. I was really trying to weigh that in, but I just couldn't in good
I
faith.
couldn't get there. I agree. I think
It's unfortunate.
it's better to have no position than it is to have a false position,
Yeah.
one that we didn't really understand. Okay.
Yeah, once the wheat is separated from the chaff, we can weigh in.
Okay, so we have a request from the city of Redmond, and you've all reviewed in your packet the information about the proposal. It's amazing when you look at what a community that was, 12,000 people a few years ago is looking at doing.
Yeah.
And I think that they just kind of need our okay, that's, and why, do you know, Carrie, why is it important for us to support this?
So in emails with Keith Witowski, the city manager of Redmond, he's really trying to get a regional acceptance of this because it will bring jobs to the region. It will bring potentially jobs to Sisters. And so they really wanted to have that. I believe it went to, there was I want to say a hearing, I'm not sure if I'm getting that right, on the 20th, and I believe there may have been one today, but I think this will continue to move on. And so even though we're a little delayed in this particular letter, I think it would be helpful to them moving forward with this, but I believe it's still in subcommittee.
And even though, you know, it is in another part of Central Oregon where the vast majority of all this is going to be taking place. It's going to have a huge impact on the whole region. So does anybody have any concerns about supporting this project and this proposal? Gary, are you with us?
There we go. I am with you. I have my video turned off, hoping to improve the audio stream. I looked this over and I think it's fine with me. And if you look at the sort of rationale at the very last page, it talks about the number of individuals within 20 miles who might be employed at this facility, and that certainly would include us. And it, you know, might be nice to export a few sisters folks that need jobs to that location in Redmond as opposed to the other way around. So I think I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful to have people living in Sisters that were working in Redmond instead of the reverse. We have so much of the reverse, for sure. So other than a head nod, do we?
Just a head nod, yeah.
Oh, I had a couple comments.
Oh, yes, please.
Just being the EDCO representative, you know, I've seen this a little bit in presentations. And kind of more, it was more of a presentation about the complicated land swapping that is involved in this to get this going, you know, on, you know, one fun fact is that, and maybe Mr. Strobel can give me a head nod, yes or no, but I believe this would kind of create the largest available heavy industrial land in the state, which is saying something. A, to kind of the lack of heavy industrial left in the state, but B, but also to have that here. One thing I brought up at that last meeting, or I kind of curious about, because this land's part of these parcels straddle the rail line, the BNSF rail line there. I would very much like to see a rail being utilized to be moving supplies in and out of that site, goods and such. As we all know, traffic is a top issue for all of us, and there are very few points, especially as a tiny city, we can control, or a city like Redmond, when you have a lot of traffic moving to and from and through your community. So any advantage you have, Redmond has a rail line, and I would, you know, I would support it at this point, but I'm still going to turn that screw, at least from my, you know, my position at EDCO, to make sure that that is utilized to relieve some of the traffic pressures on our roads in Central Oregon.
Oh, absolutely. Eric, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this? Okay.
All right, I'll get a letter to Redmond tomorrow.
Okay. So shall we go around the table?
Sure, I can kick it off. You know, for my department update, I would just like to present a message. On February 14th of this year, the applicant for the Sunset Meadows subdivision informed the city that their appeal to the Planning Commission's land use decision was being withdrawn. Since the appeal period ended on February 6th, it was too late for the council to initiate their review. You know, while staff did not foresee this playing out, in retrospect, would have been better advised to advise the council to initiate their own review simultaneously, just in the event that the applicant would have withdrawn their appeal. Let's see, sorry, go back to my notes here. So despite this oversight, we'd just like to make it clear it was council's intent to review that master plan approval. They were just unable to exercise that right just due to the procedural time issue. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Anything, Gary?
Do you have anything else, Joe?
I don't. Wonderful World of Finance is working on the same kind of projects that we talked about in the last meeting.
I just have a handful of things. I spoke with the recruitment firm this week. The recruitment closes for the city manager on the 26th. They have a good number of candidates, almost double of what they had on the last one, so that's very positive. And council will see some of those applicants in an executive session on the 14th of March. And then there is, I think I sent out an email about land use fundamentals on March 15th, which is a Zoom training through the League of Oregon Cities. It is from 6 to 8 p.m. Councilor Letts brought to my attention that may be the same night as the Forest Service open house. We don't have a for sure date on time on that yet. But if you would like to attend that, please let me know. I will be sending everybody in as a group because we get a little bit of a bonus on what it costs if I get everybody together. So that will also go out to the Planning Commission if they'd like to attend. If you can get that to me.
Is there anybody in the planning department that would like to nominate some of us to go?
So no, you guys can choose on your own whether you want to attend or not.
Okay.
But it was actually fortuitous. I think it's a great thing with as many kind of land use things going on right now. So that they were bringing that forward.
What was that date again?
March 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. I sent an email yesterday regarding it. There should be an explanation of it. And then, as I said, just make sure you contact me. Don't register yourself because we can get a discount if I register everybody together.
Okay.
And then just as a note, the Explore Sisters board will meet tomorrow and I will be going to that meeting and let you know how that goes. Any questions?
I think so. Who would like to jump up? Paul, you want to go next?
So I just had a couple things. Our fuel reduction bid for phase 2 of our fuel reduction out of the wastewater treatment plant and the Edgerton Road property is out for bid. That will close on March 21st. And so hopefully we'll be bringing you back another contract to approve the first meeting in April. Very important work. We're going to have one of our contractors that worked on the wildfire mitigation plans start marking trees next week. We'll let the property owners know. And then hopefully we can get that work done timing wise this spring. And it will carry into next fall and winter with the slash burning, much like phase 1 did this year. We should hear back on our grant to fund that project in March. So hopefully that timing coincides well. If not, we'll bring a recommendation to you guys to move ahead earlier. We'll have to do a budget amendment on that. So. And then we started work on our sustainability plan, developed an outline with Jackson, and we're working with Councilor Letts to dive into that plan and start putting it together for, potentially the next 20 years. Just want to make sure that you guys are okay with Councilor Letts helping us out with that. She expressed interest, and I don't know if, who else. So.
No, yeah, I think definitely would be a good choice.
And we would appreciate it, definitely. Yeah.
Happy to help.
Great. That's all I had.
Scott?
Just have a couple of things myself. Just wanted to let you guys know, as I think I indicated earlier, and for the benefit of the public, that the update to the city's parks master plan has passed. Planning Commission is going to go forward to council on March 8th. That's a 20-year plan for basically master plan to make sure that the city keeps pace with growth with its parks and its open space. So if anybody in the public is interested in that, that document is available on the city website. The water and wastewater master plan is also being updated, and it's planned, I think, go back to going to Planning Commission in March, and then you'll see that sometime in April or May. The affordable housing grant that is associated with the Wellhouse Church property and the rezoning. We've been talking, we did an RFP to see if there were developers out there that wanted to take advantage of city's affordable housing grant funds, and also the aforementioned $500,000 of the ARPA funds that was passed through the county to the City of Sisters for use with affordable housing. We did an RFP. We found a developer, affordable housing developer, Northwest Housing Alternatives, that responded to the RFP, and we've been in negotiation with the grant agreement for them to construct a minimum 40-unit affordable housing apartment project that will serve folks in Sisters with incomes of 80% of the area media income or less. So that'll come forward to you on March 8th for approval. And I just would just welcome everybody who made public comment tonight. Appreciate the comment. I'm the community development director, and I would just recommend that if you have any comments that you want to put in writing you can forward them to our office, and we will make sure that they get to the Planning Commission, because that's the first step in the process of this land use application that's been submitted. It hasn't been deemed complete yet. There's still information out there, but it's typically as a staff level review, but I've made the decision that this is of community-wide importance that should go to the Planning Commission. So keep your ear out for that. That would be the proper venue for submitting your comments. We try to avoid what we call ex parte communication. That's outside of the record. And we try to make sure that that communication is all done within the record, and that everybody has the benefit of that testimony. So welcome to public comment. We certainly don't want to preclude you from doing that, but I just want to let you know that there is a venue for your comments in the planning process, which would be the Planning Commission once that date is scheduled. And if you have any questions about that at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Matthew Martin, who's the principal planner who's handling the case. So, that's it.
Anything, questions, Gary? Anybody? Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Before we move along, Eric, you got any news or anything you want to? I'll do that next week. Okay, great, thank you. Susan?
My only additional comment was in the minutes before last, the mayor had indicated that he wanted to put into the goals something about local broadband. And I think somehow that got dropped, or maybe he decided not to, but I just wanted to bring it up in case it was something that we wanted to put back into the goals, just to get it on our notes here. So,
See if he forgot that or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I surprisingly do not have anything to add this week.
One of those good weeks.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to meet with the executive director of the Houseless Coalition, Charo, and had a very good meeting with her. And we still haven't gotten the exact dates for our upcoming board meetings, and but she does want to come to Sisters at least once a month, and when we can, and for special events or meetings, and to bring information to the council whenever we want it and need it, being significantly outreach to our community, trying to make sure that we're not the little stepsister that gets what's left over kind of things. There's a bunch of money that you hear about all the time that's coming from the governor's office to help deal with these issues, and it's on the priority of every department to look through the lens of people who are houseless or about to become houseless. So there's a lot of activity, and whether or not we will be able to be in the right position at the right time to grab the gold ring, we'll see. So we're certainly looking at it and trying to see where we might fit in. So I'll keep you up to date on how that's going. That's about all I have.
Well, I have a few things.
Oh, yes, good.
Remember me? I'm the guy on the wall. First of all, I want to thank those of you who came and spoke tonight. And I also want to thank you for staying to the end. this is a chance where we get to have some comments on things. And while I'm not going to comment on what you've been speaking of, because I think you just heard why from Scott, it's important to us. And I also want to thank Joe for mentioning that the council, some members of the council anyway, we had intended to try and review the land use decision, the decision on the other development. And because of the way things worked out, we can't. So I'm aware of what your concerns are. I'm hearing what you're saying. I own an electric vehicle. I like that idea too. So, but be that as it may, thank you for being here. I strongly encourage you to put all of your comments into the written record, as Scott suggested. That's your best avenue for making sure that what you're concerned about gets before the Planning Commission. And I apologize I can't be there tonight. I'm snowed in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Anything else? Going? We're gone.